This episode contains descriptions of a suicide attempt. Please listen with care. On any given day, on Pier 39 in San Francisco, a colony of California sea lions camps out. They're intelligent, gregarious, and social when it's not summer mating season. With keen vision and hearing, especially above water, and sensitive whiskers that detect movement, if one senses unusual activity, it may start towards the water. And when it swims, its front flippers look like angel's wings. That's why some people call the California sea lion the angel of the sea. One man has a different reason.
I think this is it. I'm going to die here. And I don't want to. What have I done? What did I do? And that's when something begins circling beneath me, bumping me up. And no longer am I wading or treading in the water. I'm lying atop it on my back, being kept buoyant by this creature, hitting my shoulders, my neck, my elbows, and my knees in a circle. Thinking to myself, this is one hell of a nice shark. It turned out to be a sea lion. A sea lion kept me afloat in the water. I believe it was a miracle.
A miracle. And a hell of a lot of perseverance has Kevin Hines sitting across from me today. I'm so grateful that he is, because his story, his miracle, gives him such a unique perspective to share with us.
And this is important for people who are considering suicide, really. The moment, the millisecond my hands left the rail, instantaneous regret from my action. Why? Because before that, I couldn't see any other option. But the moment it became real, you're going to die. I thought, what have I just done?
Kevin's story, as difficult as it is to hear, is so important because of the message of his motto, be here tomorrow.
I learned how to be more resilient and hold more gratitude every day. Everywhere I go, everything I do, everyone I meet matters. And when you have that perception, that perspective on life, nothing can stop you.
How Kevin Hines became unstoppable against all odds, and how he's saving lives like his. Today on the Gratitudeology podcast.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you find me again.
In downtown San Francisco, about 50 blocks make up a district known as the Tenderloin, an area with a long-standing reputation for crime and homelessness.
The worst neighborhood there then, worst neighborhood there today.
In 1991, infant brothers Jordash and Giovanni were among its residents.
Much like my favorite comic book character, Deadpool, I was born in pain. And I was born to biological parents who I believe loved me dearly, but they had me and my brother, and they had nothing and no one else. No feasible legal income. We were hustling to survive. And they would leave my brother and I, he was 10 months older than me, they would leave my brother and I unattended day by day, night by night, to go do score and sell drugs. My birth parents had been feeding me in my formative months only what they could steal. Kool-Aid, Coca-Cola, and sour milk was my diet from birth. That was our life. And we lived in and out of crack motels, dangerous places, seedy places. Our birth parents, in my opinion, were trying to keep a roof over our heads the only way they knew how. That doesn't excuse what they did, but they were very unwell. They were addicted, and they were desperate, and they were in pain. And one day, one of the general manager of that motel got so sick and tired of hearing us scream and cry that he called the police and CPS, Child Protective Services. And they came in and they found ubiquitous ulcers on our backs from lying in our own filth.
Kevin says he holds no ill will towards his birth parents for passing down that pain. Rather, he misses and loves them intensely.
I love them dearly, even though I never really got to meet them. I miss them every day, even though I never got to meet them. And that pain is never going anywhere. Growing up, I had this void in the depth of my chest and in my stomach, this void in my gut, not knowing them. My brother and I bounced around in foster care after being ripped from their home, that motel, placed in a foster care, as you know, a broken system then, broken system right now. And I remember growing up just wanting to meet them. I just wanted to meet them, and I just wanted to tell them one thing. 3 words. I love you. Well, I learned that they both died tragically because of their brain disease, manic depression, what we today call bipolar disorder, the very same brain disease I live with right now.
Jordache and Giovanni were only 10 months apart and looked alike, though Jordache had curly blonde hair, while Giovanni's was dark and straight.
My birth brother and I both were supposed to be adopted together. He got bronchitis, he died. We both got bronchitis, he died. I was a survivor from the very beginning of my life.
Giovanni survived bronchitis, but was still a sickly baby at 9 months old, shuffled around to different homes filled with neglect.
Then I always say I got very, very lucky twofold. Number one, I landed in the home of one Peter and Deborah Muller. Peter was in the Army, he was an Army doctor. Deborah was a nurse, and they were the first foster parents, in my understanding, to ever properly take care of me. And they took me in, but they were what's called a transitional home. You couldn't stay there. Foster parents from all over the area would come to see who to take home and adopt. And one fateful day, a lovely young woman named Deborah Joan Hines came to their door looking for a little girl to take home, to be the sister of Elizabeth Catherine. She and Patrick Kevin Hines had already taken in. They wanted to give Elizabeth a sister, but the first thing she saw was me. And she said in her journal of those days, which is obviously how I know this story, that was the moment she fell in love. And she went back to Patrick and said, we got to take this kid in, and he needs us. And he said, absolutely, let's do it. And they took me in, 9 months of age. And Pat and Debbie took in 3 kids from 3 separate families into one, making a melting pot of a family. And they gave us the world. And I think we're so lucky that they did.
They gave him the name John Kevin Hines. He'd go by Kevin. And at 17 years old, Kevin received a diagnosis.
I live with bipolar depression.
You live with bipolar depression.
A quick note here. Bipolar disorder is a mental illness that causes unusual and extreme shifts in a person. There are 3 types of bipolar disorder, all of which include depressive episodes. Kevin self-identifies as living with bipolar depression, so that's how we'll refer to it. Back to Kevin's story. By the time he was 19, his bipolar depression was raging a war against him.
I was in my room, my father in the very next room, obviously willing and able to help me if I asked for it. He would have moved mountains to keep me safe from myself that day. I sat in my room contemplating, believing I was useless, believing I was worthless, believing I had no value, hating myself, hearing voices in my head telling me I had to die, screaming in my head that I had no other option, that it was inevitable. I didn't have a choice. So people always ask me, Kevin, why did you decide to take it? I didn't decide. I was compelled by a lethal emotional pain that was trying to end me. I didn't want to end myself. I desperately wanted to live, but my brain was trying to kill me. And so I wrote that note to everybody in my life. I'm sorry. I have to do this. Please forgive me. Put that note in my shoulder bag by the door. 6 a.m, wake my father up. I startle him awake. He's got the breathing machine on. He says, Kevin, what's wrong? Takes it off. Kevin, what's wrong? Nothing, Dad. I just wanted to tell you that I love you. In my mind, it was for the very last time. He goes, Kevin, I love you too, but it's 6 a.m. I don't have to be working until 9. Go back to bed. And he fell soundly asleep as quickly as he had woken, having no clue. I eventually made my way back to my room. He comes in and he goes, Kevin, I'm very worried about you. I don't know what to do. Why don't you come to work with me today? There was my opportunity. I had already silenced my pain. I had already doubled down on it. I tripled down on the silencing of my pain. I told my father I had to go to City College for a math test that day. I hate math with a vigorous passion. He drove me to City College. I left City College early and made my way out to the Golden Gate Bridge. All the while, literally the entire time, hearing these auditory hallucinations telling me I had to die. And so I get the bus gets to the Golden Gate Bridge parking lot. 100 people deboard right there, and I'm crying like a baby, hoping, wishing, and praying that one person will see me, say something kind. Brother, are you okay? Kid, is something wrong, pal? Can I help you? I would have told them everything and begged them to save me, but no one says a thing. Except for the guy next to me, who points at me with his thumb while laughing at me and laughing at my pain, and says to the guy next to him, what the hell's wrong with that kid? Like it's some kind of joke. Complete and total apathy. And it just sunk in that I'm worthless. Everyone deboards at the Golden Gate Bridge stop, and I sit there crying, hoping the driver will see me. Instead, he stands and he goes, come on, kid, get off the bus. I got to go. I walked up to him, looked him right in his eyes, and he just motioned for me to get off the bus. I walked on the span of the walkway. I paced back and forth for at least 40 minutes, crying like a baby. Everybody went by me. Everybody, bikers, joggers, tourists, runners, patrol officers, searching for suicidal people.
Those patrol officers, Kevin says, had not actually been trained in suicide prevention. So they walked by him twice. Nobody stopped him from what he was about to do.
The millisecond my hands left the rail, instantaneous regret from my action. Why? Because before that, I couldn't see any other option. But the moment it became real, you're going to die. I thought, what have I just done? I don't want to die. God, please save me. I prayed as I fell. And you hit that water at 15,000 pounds of pressure. That's like a giant African elephant standing on your chest, which immediately shattered my T12, L1, L2. They popped and splintered. I missed severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. I went down anywhere between 50 to 70 feet in the water because of the velocity at which I fell. It's like a vacuum that pulls you under. I opened my eyes and I was drowning. And I didn't know which way was up or down. So I start to swim frantically, but I'm going the wrong way. My eyes begin to bulge. My ears begin to ring. I shoot for the opposite direction of the surface. As fast as my arms would take me, I couldn't feel my legs. They were working. I get to the surface. I take a gasp of air. I go back down. I come back up. I try to yell, help me, help me. I can't scream. My lungs have been impacted. I'm in excruciating physical pain. The most pain I'd ever felt up to that point in my life. My back had imploded. And I go down again. And at this point, I can't get back to the surface. I think this is it. I'm going to die here. And I don't want to. And that's when something begins circling beneath me, bumping me up. And no longer am I wading or treading in the water. I'm lying atop it on my back, being kept buoyant by this creature, hitting my shoulders, my neck, my elbows, and my knees in a circle. Thinking to myself, this is one hell of a nice shark. It turned out to be a sea lion.
Kevin points to his shirt. It says, "Be here tomorrow," with an image.
This is Herbert, the sea lion that saved my life. I named him. It's so wild, like a creature that doesn't even speak my language says, I'm going to help this kid. Come on.
And from there, more miracles.
I get to the ambulance. Ambulance gets me to the hospital. One of the foremost back surgeons ever, Dr. Jonathan Levin, was visiting the hospital. He wasn't even supposed to be there that day. He says, I'm going to do Kevin's surgery, saving me the ability to stand, walk, and run. Of the 40 Golden Gate Bridge jump survivors, 5 of us can stand, walk, and run. They call us the most exclusive survivors club in the world. I get to be here. So getting to be here in this moment with you is a gift. Getting to be here in New York is a gift. Getting to be anywhere in the world, any day of the week, any week of the month, any month of the year is a gift. Today, I take nothing I do, know where I go, and no one I meet for granted, like I used to. I wish more people would be like that, because everything, everywhere, and everyone matters.
You know, that's the whole point of this podcast.
I know.
Look, I always say that those of us who have seen the darkness see the light that much brighter. You know, I almost died from drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was a battle that I brought on myself. But, you know, also I wasn't a bad person trying to get good. I was a sick person trying to get well. I had addiction. I suffered with addiction. But the point is that I'm 20 plus years sober now. Every morning when I wake up, it's not lost on me that it didn't have to go down like this. And my husband's sober too. And we wake up every morning and we like elbow each other and we're like, isn't this fucking awesome? Yeah. Every day. So like everything else on top of that is just gravy. Like everything
icing
else
on the cake.
is just icing on the cake.
Yes.
If everybody could understand that and feel that and just feel like, have the ability to recognize the hokey things, the sunrise, the colors, the cold glass of water I'm drinking
the
right
traffic.
now. Right. The traffic and the ability
The kid crying on the plane.
100%.
Means you can hear.
Yes. And what I think having something like this happen does, I talk about this analogy to a marathon runner because I run. Okay. When I'm running, I can often be stuck looking down at my feet and I'm just running and I'm running. And you're looking at your feet because you don't want to trip on a crack, but you're like in the minutia and like your feet, and you're in your head and you're like, this sucks. Running sucks. How much longer is this going to be? And you're just stuck and it makes it feel so much longer. And then all of a sudden, something takes you. I call it a God shot. And I was very, very unreligious before I went into recovery. But, you know, most alcoholics aren't like hanging out at church on a Sunday morning. But I found my own higher power. And so I call it a God shot. And all of a sudden, something usually takes me halfway through a race. And it's like, lift your head. And I lift my eyes from my feet to the horizon. And I just zoom out. And all of a sudden, oh my God, the sky is so blue. Oh my God, the trees are so green. They're creating oxygen. I'm so grateful to have 2 lungs to breathe that with. Hey, there's people running next to me. Hey, fellow humans, that's pretty cool. Hey, we're all here together. And all of a sudden, running doesn't suck so much. That is what gratitude does. And it is the simplest shift in perspective, but it's so monumental.
It is monumental. Like, Gratitude and resilience are the two most protective factors from suicide. I live with chronic thoughts of suicide. They plague me. They will never take me. I will never end my life because I practice gratitude and resilience every day. I learn how to be more resilient and hold more gratitude every day. Everywhere I go, everything I do, everyone I meet matters. And when you have that perception, that perspective on life, nothing can stop you.
So tell me from there, because so now you're on the other side of this.
Yeah.
You have this entire new perspective of life, which we're now talking about. Yeah. But it wasn't like, oh, end of the movie, roll credits, everything's hunky-dory.
No.
So tell me what happened after that, the ensuing years.
Yeah.
Actually, before we get there, how did your family react?
My dad got to the hospital and his immediate thought was guilt. He walked into the hospital room and said, "Kevin, I'm sorry." I was in a bracing structure. I said, "No, Dad, I'm sorry." We both felt guilt. Guilt that didn't belong to him and it didn't belong to me. I knew not what I was doing. I was sick. It wasn't his fault. He didn't lead me there. He didn't lead me to the Golden Gate Bridge. It wasn't my mom, dad's, brothers, sisters, family, friends' fault. It was my brain's fault. My mom comes in. Oh, by the way, my dad comes over my forehead and goes, "Kevin, you're going to be okay, I promise." They had given him a 50-50 chance I'd live through the night. My mom comes in and he goes, "Well, Kevin, I guess God wanted you to win that Oscar." Let's talk about perspective. She's the most optimistic person on the face of the planet. This glass is never half empty or half full. It's toppling over with optimism. She's incredible. And while my dad was there as like this rock, this steadfast rock of like love and fear of what was going to happen to me, and he didn't leave my hospital room for 4.5 weeks. When the security came in and said, "Mr. Hines, we're going to have to ask you to leave," he said, "Make me." He said, "Get me a cot." I said, "Mr. Hines, we're going to have to make you leave." He said, "Listen, I'm a 3rd-degree black belt in judo. So you can do one of two things right now. You can get me a cot or you can get me a cot." So he stayed there in the room with me. He washed himself in the sink of my bedroom, of the hospital room. And my brother comes in and he has no recollection of this. He was 13 at the time. I finally learned he actually looked up to me. He goes, "How could you do this to us? We love you. I hate you." And he stormed out. I devastated him and our relationship has never been the same. My sister came in, gave me a kiss on my cheek and said, "I love you. You're going to be okay." But it was really my dad saying, "Kevin, you're going to be okay. I promise," that I held on to. I held on to it. And I knew that I was going to get through this and that God was going to keep me alive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent that sea lion, which I still thought was a shark. So anyway, all that to say that people swarmed me. Family that hadn't talked to me in a long time talked to me. Friends I hadn't talked to in years wrote to me. I got 1,200 signatures from my high school saying, "Get well soon." I didn't know I knew 1,200 people. Not to mention all the masses that were said for me in my name to pray that I would survive and one day thrive.
Of course, Kevin did survive, and he did thrive, but not without putting in the work.
Yeah, and it's not over even now. 2000 was when I jumped. 2000 and 2004, first 3 psych ward stays, all involuntary, forced in against my will. But it was in my 3rd psych ward stay that I had what I call the epiphany and the gift. The epiphany came in the form of my Uncle George coming to see me, saying, "Kid, you better do something about this, or you'll be out of these places for the rest of your life. Ain't nothing gonna change." And he dropped off a Time magazine article from I think 2002 that discussed how to defeat bipolar depression, mental illness, and depression with routine and regimen and win. And I go in there and I read this article through and through. And I'm thinking to myself, you mean I can do all of these things? And I might feel better, and no psychiatrist up till this point has told me this might be a good idea? So I go, okay, I'm lying in therapy every day. What if I start telling the truth? Oh, okay, I'm pre-diabetic and well overweight. What if I lose some weight? Well, that helped. So I start eating anti-inflammatory meals, most days, as opposed to ordering 4 unhealthy meals per 1 meal a day, which is what I was doing and what they were allowing in the hospital. I start listening to sleep music every night. I still do it because I was an insomniac and that was driving the psychosis. So I'm doing all these things. And then I ended up sitting with a psychologist and writing my own program, which I now share with the world, called The Art of Wellness. And it helps thousands of people change their lives. And it's just a simple routine. It's nothing novel. I didn't invent it. These are things that are scientifically proven to change your brain, to change your life. And people often write into it and say, in 6 to 9 months of following this program, my life has been changed. And that's it. It's the 6 to 9 months. It's not going to happen overnight. You got to put in the work.
People don't want to hear that.
I have to hear it.
Since he says people have to hear it, we'll say it again. You have got to put in the work. One avenue is Kevin's program, The Art of Wellness, free on his YouTube. But back to the psych ward.
So this is my favorite story. My wife, Margaret, is the most lovely woman on the face of the planet. And yes, I met her in a psych ward. I was a patient. She was visiting her cousin at the time, and he was catatonic. He couldn't move and he couldn't talk. And the sad part was, because he wasn't helping himself get better, the hospital staff wasn't helping him. That was part of the deal. If you weren't doing anything actively to help yourself, hands off. And they would bring him his trays of food full, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They'd take it away full an hour later. He wasn't eating. He was starving. It broke my heart. I go to him and I start telling him stories, just story after story about everyone I knew about. And I'm trying to elicit a response because nobody else is. Everyone's ignoring him. And he goes like this 2 weeks into his stay. Jesus Christ, man, you talk too much. Leave me alone. I know your whole life story like twice. Cut a guy a break. People were clapping. But I got him out of his catatonia. I literally did. And in the meantime, I go to my case manager and I've finagled my way into volunteering for the psych ward I'm staying in, which is unethical, probably illegal. But I got my way into doing it. And I'm doing all these odd jobs in the hospital and my therapy. So instead of 10 forms of therapy, 5 forms of therapy and something productive to do, because I was bored. And I'm in there for 2 months because none of my family and none of my friends will house me after the psych ward. It's either go to a halfway home for the mentally ill or become homeless. Those are my 2 options. And I felt completely abandoned by everyone that loved me. And that's hard to talk about because that's a point of contention with the family. But I get it. They needed a separation because this was the third 3 strikes and you're out, right? So anyway, in that psych ward, this woman named Gloria kept thinking I was her son. So she would come in and wake me up at 2 a.m, leaning over me in my room. She would scare the bejesus out of me. And my son, Gloria, I'm not your son. I'm Kevin. I'm not, please, Gloria, please go back to sleep. I'm so tired. And so we put a sign on the front of her door, no entrar, Gloria. But she still came in. And finally I stopped freaking out. I started going, hi, Gloria, let's sit down. And so I wouldn't pretend to be your son, but I wouldn't tell her I was not her son. I would just let her talk. We ended up having a nice conversation. Anyway, now meeting my wife, I'm in there and I'm wearing a pink polo shirt, khaki cargo shorts, and sandals. Everyone else is wearing hospital gowns. I have a clipboard, notebook, and a pen. It's just Leonardo the Ninja Turtle that I've drawn. I put that to my chest and I had tapped my left shoulder, and there she was. And I was done. I knew she'd be the rest of my life. I just didn't know how. And I was like, don't tell her that. That would be weird. And she says to me, do you work here? And the whole staff is looking at me like, this guy. But I worked too hard, so I didn't say anything. I said, as a matter of fact, miss, I'm a volunteer. And the rest is history. She gave me one date. It was a debacle. It was a disaster. Basically, I got lobster sauce all over my chest. I got boiling butter on hers. I got lemon juice in her eye. It was a nightmare. like to go on a second date with me. I don't know why she did, but she gave me a second chance. And now we're 17 years married and 20 years together, and it's incredible.
To see a photo of Kevin and his wife, head on over to @Gratitudeology on Instagram. Now, Kevin works tirelessly to prevent suicide in many ways, including as a speaker, a podcaster, and a content creator. And a documentarian. His film is called Suicide: The Ripple Effect.
It's available on Vimeo on demand right now. Suicide: The Ripple Effect. It chronicles my life story in a cinematic way, beautiful way. And I'll tell you that when we put this film out, we had it shown for free with foundations all over the world through Gather Films for foundations to use the ticket money to raise money for their organizations. We raised, I think, over $100 million. Wow. The film was seen well over 2 million times in 20 plus countries, and it had that kind of effect. And to date, I think over 1,000 people have said the film saved their life.
1,000 people, just from one film. That's incredible. And it shows the power of not burying our secrets away. I always say, we're only as sick as our secrets. And I really do believe that getting the hard things out in the open takes so much power away from them. It's also true for our kids, especially when it comes to bullying. Kevin also knows it all too well. It's why his children's book, Dimly Lit Star, is especially personal.
So a part you might not know is that in grade school, I was bullied to no end. Because I'm part Black, in an all-white school, they tormented me. The 8th graders picked me up, put me in a trash can face first every Friday. They told me that's what I was because I was a part Black. They would push me over. One guy would lay behind me. Another guy would push me over. I'd crack my head on the concrete and bleed. They would hold me down and call me Little Red N-word every day. It was brutal. It was brutal. And it played a pivotal role in losing all of my self-worth.
So it really was a huge contributor.
It played a pivotal role in me leaping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And so I don't really often talk about that, but I do talk about this new book, The Dimly Lit Star, which is about building resilience in our children so they can defy and survive pain. And pain comes in the form often of bullying. And today's bullying is so much more heinous. 60% more dangerous cyberbullying than physical bullying because it's invasive, it's pervasive, it's permanent, and it just continues. And if you're on social media as a child, which you shouldn't be, it's not meant for you. It's not designed for you. It's designed to manipulate you. And people don't understand. Adults don't understand, parents don't understand how social media companies hire the best psychologists in the world to manipulate their children. Like, that's not okay. But there are far too many children and high school students writing to their peers online that you should just go kill yourself because. And these children are influenceable, and they see that, they see it repeated a million times, and they think, this is my forever. This is the end of me. I cannot move forward. They have no understanding that they're not even fully developed yet until they're 26. Their brains will change. They'll thrive in life and they'll be successful. And so when I always speak to high schools and grade schools, I always talk to these kids directly and bluntly that your words have consequence. And these children have mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, family, and friends who need them. Do not write online, you should just go kill yourself. Because that blood is on your hands.
Absolutely. It's terrifying being a parent. Here's the thing, and I've heard you say this before, and I love it, and I totally agree with you. You're like, young people aren't resilient enough. How do they build that resilience without crumbling?
It's got to start at a very young age, and it's got to start with the parents or the guardians. You have got to let them know that no matter, I think it's from as young as you can, no matter what anyone says about you or writes about you that isn't true, no matter how often it's read, seen, or heard, it cannot hurt you unless you allow it to. Don't let it in. Don't let it live rent-free in your brain. Push it out. If I had see what my mom did when I was bullied is she would send me with sticky notes in my lunchbox. You're gonna be okay. You are loved. What they say doesn't matter. Keep going. I love you. And she would do this every day because it got really bad. And so we need constant friendly reminders to our loved ones and our children, whether they're teenagers in high school or grade school, and say, what's the peak and the pit of your day when they come home? What's the peak and the pit of your day at the dinner table? Did they hurt you today? Yes. Are they still hurting you online? Yes or no? Yes. Let's have a debrief. What are they saying? Tell me what they're saying. You have to open the can of worms. Tell the truth. What are they saying? Break it down to the base level. And you say, they only say those things because they are broken and they are trying to break you. Don't let them. You forge onward. You're going to teach a child to build resolve and resilience so they can survive that kind of struggle. Because the children that are on their devices 24 hours a day, or the parents aren't monitoring those devices or what's going on there, those are the ones I think are in the most trouble. Because in a sense, in that realm, they're being neglected in a sense. Yeah. That their reality is being neglected because so many of our kids are stuck here. So I think that to build that resolve, you start young. If you haven't started young, you start now.
We still haven't gotten to what's, in my mind, one of Kevin's most fascinating and impactful efforts. To understand just how big of an accomplishment this is, I think it's important to understand the scope here. For decades, the Golden Gate Bridge has been the deadliest suicide spot in the world, perhaps even more deadly than what's been reported.
The Bridge District Authority, who own and run the bridge, is a private entity. It's like a special district authority. These board members, these 19 board members who run the show, they have named 1,800 people as the number for at least the last 10 years, if not more. The bridge patrol officers who I know and talk to, the Marine coroner, who is a personal friend and board member of the Bridge Rail Foundation my father founded, they will tell you that when the Bridge Directorate tells you that 20 to 30 people jump off the bridge every year, they will tell you it's more like 60 or higher every year. So you do the math. 60 or higher for 90 years. We're talking about over 4,000 people. When people fall onto concrete from a building or a tall structure, it is shut down immediately because of what the people below have to see and experience and the trauma. But when people fall into water, it's into the abyss, disappears, doesn't matter.
To be honest, Kevin, though, 1,800 is pretty shocking to me. Like, that's a lot of friggin' people. So I understand your frustration over proper reporting because it does matter. Every one of those people matters. But either way, that is a tremendously large number of people. Yeah. And I think for somebody who's not really ever given it much thought, that's shocking.
It is shocking. It's shocking, and you're right. Every one of those lives matters. But they didn't act like that. And they fought us at every turn to fight to raise the net.
The net. The thing that could and would make a huge difference.
For the better part of 90 years, different groups have advocated to end death at the Golden Gate Bridge. And for the better part of 90 years, those advocates were halted.
Why was there such pushback prior?
They'll just go somewhere else. You're going to ruin the aesthetics of the bridge. First of all, it's a myth. They won't just go somewhere else. They'll be saved. Secondarily, the aesthetics of a bridge. What are the aesthetics of a bridge compared to one human life? That's your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your family, your friend. They matter. And they don't want to die. They believe they have to. And if you can show them a different way, you can keep them alive. With chronic thoughts of suicide, but I'm right here next to you. For the last 23 years since my attempt, my father, myself, and then my wife have been working tirelessly alongside a great many other people. Started by the Bridge Rail Foundation, which my father founded with Paul Muller and Dave Hall. Dave Hall lost his 13-year-old daughter to the Golden Gate Bridge. Kathy, may she rest in peace. Got together with a bunch of family members, a bunch of suicide prevention organizations, We fought tirelessly for 23 years. As of January 1 of this year, the net was complete across all 360,000 square feet of the bridge across both sides. And as of February of this year, for the first time in 90 years, there were 0 suicides at the Golden Gate Bridge. And we did that. And it's an incredible achievement. It's one of the only massive success stories in the field of suicide prevention ever.
The net is made of marine-grade stainless steel across the 1.7-mile span of the bridge. Those officers who walked by Kevin, now they're trained in both prevention, Kevin even did some of the training, and rescue if someone does fall.
We raised that net. It was incredible. And maybe it won't stop every suicide, but it will probably stop 90% of them every year. And that's amazing. And when I say it's one of the only proven ways to reduce suicides, reduction of access to lethal means is one of the only proven methods of real suicide prevention. And so if we can utilize this win and take it around the world, which is what the Bridge Rail Foundation is now doing, we've opened up and we're sharing the blueprint of this success to change legislation here. We can change it anywhere. And that's why I'm now making the new documentary about the net, about the 90-year effort to end at the Golden Gate Bridge, how we did it, why we did it, and why it's so important.
Thousands of lives saved already, and probably thousands more that will be saved. So many people and their loved ones who all have gratitude for Kevin and might not even know it. And Kevin is fueled by gratitude every day.
I'm a firm believer that, certainly after I did what I did, that every waking moment is a gift. And in believing that every waking moment is a gift, no matter how painful some of those moments are, I'm telling you, Jamie, you can survive any pain that comes your way. Pain is universal. It's coming for all of us if it hasn't already. If you hold gratitude inside the most painful moments of your life, you're indestructible. Choose to be indestructible. Choose gratitude.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Kevin Hines, I can't thank you enough for being so vulnerable and honest. Through your films, your YouTube, just spreading inspiration at every turn. If you know someone who needs help, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7 by calling, texting, or chatting 988 in the U.S. More resources are available in the show notes. That's all for today. Remember, if you like what you heard, if it impacted you in any way, and if you think it's a message other people in your life might like to hear, I'd be so grateful if you'd give me 5 stars, leave a quick little comment. Those things really help. And share this podcast with your friends, either on social media or just word of mouth. I'm on a mission for us all to help each other focus on expanding our attention towards what's good in the world rather than focusing on what's bad, one person at a time. If we all did that, even to our own little sphere of influence, the world has the potential to be a much more radically awesome place. Stick with me, friends. I've got your back. We're in this together, and it's a great day to see the greatness in the day. See you next time. The Gratitudeology podcast is written, executive produced, and hosted by me, Jamie Hess. Sound design and studio production by Gotham Production Studios. Our theme song is Maze by Hills, sung by Nadia Ali. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Gratitudeology.
I'll be right